Hello everyone, welcome back to DevOps Titan. Today we have come here to discuss the second question, CKA practice question 2, and the question is based on network policy and ingress. Here in this example, I have taken a scenario where there are three pods. Okay, the name of the pod is Nginx, BusyBox1, BusyBox2. So the question requirement is to create three pod name and their image name is given below. Make sure only BusyBox1 pod should be able to communicate with Nginx pod on port 80. Pod BusyBox2 should not be able to connect to pod Nginx. So basically there is no namespace defined here. So it looks like there are three pods, and within the same, if the no in exam, if namespace is not defined, then all the pods are assumed to be within the same namespace. That is the default namespace. Okay, so by default, if you create a pod, the pod will connect. You can connect to Nginx pod, and if you try to telnet or if you try to ping, it will ping to other pods. But if you apply a network policy, if you don't want some pods to be able to communicate with other pods, then that's where network policy comes into the picture. So here there are three pods, all the pods are in default namespace, and here the question wants you to create a network policy and apply it to Nginx and apply it in such a way that pod BusyBox2 should not be able to connect to pod Nginx. That means only BusyBox1 should be able to connect to pod Nginx on port 80. Okay, so let's see. As per this question requirement, if you get a question of this standard, and you might expect a question on this topic, and if at all you get a question on this platform or this standard, then you should be able to complete that question within 5 minutes and practice as much you can and try to complete such kind of question within 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, so there is a stopwatch. You can click on start and you can click start, and once you are done, moment you are done, click on stop and check how much time it takes. There was a survey on this page and many of you have voted. If you see the result, 64% people who has voted, maybe not everyone participates in the voting, but all those who have voted, they have selected 64% said yes, they got a very similar question in their exam, and majority others, second 29% people, they have said that they have not yet written exam, and but they found this post is helpful to them. There is a small note I try to write. So okay, if you have not set up a cluster to practice for this lab, then here is the link for Windows user, and if you are on Mac, click on this link. You will get a YouTube video where I have shown step by step how you can create a cluster to practice. So let's assume, I assume that you have a cluster, and if you have a cluster, then first step is, if you get this question in the exam, most probably I assume you will have pod created. The exams question, the examiner wants you to showcase how you create network policy. Pods might be there already, and you will be asked to create a policy, network policy. But in our lab exam, since we don't have a pod, you can copy all these commands: kubectl run image, run nginx image. So you try to execute these three commands and get the pods created. You see all these pods are in default namespace, and if you try these pods are make sure these pods are up and running. If you try to connect to any one of these pods, suppose if you exec connects to BusyBox1, and from there if you just give ping nginx, okay, you will see the ping is working, or telnet on port 80, you will see it is getting connected. But as per the exam questions requirement, if you connect to BusyBox2 and try to telnet nginx on port 80, you will be able to connect right now, but the question wants you to restrict that. Apply a network policy so that if you connect to BusyBox2 pod, if you get inside the pod, and from there if you try to connect to Nginx on port 80, your connection should be timed out or should be restricted. Okay, and this is the question where we want to implement this. Okay, step 2. So the requirement in the exam would be to create a network policy, and this is the network policy which we need to create. Now in network policy, these are the standard like API version, kind, metadata, spec. So here we have implemented pod selector and match labels. If you looks like I have not shown that or what. Okay, so when you create a pod, Nginx pod, suppose if you are kubectl get pods, if you do, you see all these 3 pods are running. Run that command kubectl get pod space hyphen show levels. If you give that, then you will see the levels on all these 3 pods. Okay, by default the level of the pod which comes is run equal to the name of the pod. So by default this is the level which will be there on any pod you create. So here we have to apply, as per this question, we need to create a network policy, and the network policy should be applied on pod which has level run equal to Nginx. Means we are going to apply network policy on Nginx pod, and what inside that policy what we need to write, that section will be defined here. So this section which you see pod selector, this section defines which, once you create this policy, it will go and find the pod which has this level. Okay, and it will apply this network policy on that pod. And which pod has this level? By default I said run is the level name. By default whenever you create any pod, that is the level by default, and the value of that level will be the name of the pod. Okay, so this policy which we are creating, it will go and search for the pod which has level run equal to Nginx. Okay, and it will apply that policy on Nginx. And what it is going to apply in this policy, we just have ingress. Okay, so what happens, we don't have egress here applied, we just have ingress. And in this ingress means anything which comes in. Okay, the request which comes in, that is called ingress. And by default if you apply a policy, network policy to pod, it will deny the incoming request. Okay, if you want to whitelist, if you want to allow some request to come in, then you need to explicitly define it. So I have created we need to create one ingress. Under ingress, under policy type, we need to whitelist one of the pod for one pod, like busybox2. As per the question, busybox1 should be able to connect. So we need to define in the pod that you reject all the requests from wherever the request is coming, reject all except from one pod. Okay, and how to define that? That piece of information is mentioned here. Okay, so it says ingress from, again it is here the pod selector. Select a pod which has level run equal to busybox1. So the pod which has this level, let that pod to send request to me on port 80. So if this pod busybox1, by default as I said, each pod will have a default level run equal to name of the, whatever is the name of the pod. So this will be the level on busybox1 pod. So the ingress policy which I have applied, it will always check if the request is coming from a pod which has this level, and if the request is coming for port 80, then accept that request. Okay, we are going to apply this policy. Once you create this policy, let's see, here we have created it. Okay, once you create this policy, here I am trying to describe, to showcase what this policy. Suppose if you have created any policy which your team member has created, and if you want to know what this policy is for, Then this is a way you can describe the policy and see what this policy says. So this policy says allow ingress traffic to port 80 and from pod which has this level run equal to busybox 1. Okay, it's time to validate the change, and if you now connect to busybox 1, okay, and then this is the command through which if you can connect to pod, and hyphen hyphen, there are two hyphens here, and after this whatever command, whatever you will write here, that will go and execute inside that pod. Okay, so here we are trying to connect telnet uh, on port here. So, and this port is Nginx port. Okay, looks like I should have given one more here, like kubectl get pod hyphen o wide, so that it would have listed IP address also of all these pods. That is missing in this post. So you need to put here whatever is the IP address of your Nginx. Okay, so Nginx pod, give the IP address of that Nginx pod and space 80. Okay, so this is the port. So now using this command we are trying to connect to busybox from busybox 1 we are trying to telnet Nginx pod on port 80, and you see the message is connected. If the same thing, if we do it for busybox 2, then it says connection timed out, because it by default your busybox 2 will keep trying to connect to Nginx pod on port 80, and after a certain time period it will give connection timed out, and this is what our desired goal was. Okay, so I hope you would have liked it. In this CKA practice exam there are total 33 questions. Some questions might not be visible to you or may not be accessible to you if you are not able to find those questions, or you are able to find only 13, 14 or 15 or 20 questions on my blog or on YouTube channel. Then might be some questions are restricted to only those members who are member of who are subscribers of DevOps Titan YouTube channel, or they have created an account on DevOps Titan website. So the website account creation and subscribing to YouTube channel, everything is free, but there is some kind of accountability to see how many users are connected with our YouTube channels and website. So that's why this small restriction is there, but all the contents are free. So if you have not subscribed, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Also comment what you like, what you don't like. If there is any improvement you want me to make, please suggest that. Please participate in this all the votings which is available on the site, so that it will be helpful for others to consider it. If it is not useful, then give it mention that no, it is not, you do not get a question or something. This is one section. If you got this question or you want to give a hint, yeah, similar question came in the exam, then give it a yes. So with this, let's conclude this video. I hope you would have liked it. Thank you very much. I will come up with third question, CK practice question third. So link you can find in the description of this video. Also, all the YouTube channels, all the YouTube videos which DevOps Titans release, that video will be available under YouTube. So I have just started. So right now you might see just very few videos on YouTube blog, but very soon, if you are watching somewhere close to end of 2022, then you can see there will be a full series of videos available. Okay, so here I have all those videos, the step-by-step Kubernetes cluster setup, Mac OS for Windows and Mac I have. So all those videos which are coming, those are videos are also mentioned over here. If you want to recommend some videos where, suppose if you are facing some issues and you want a recommendation, you want me to create a video on that, please submit your request, or if you have any suggestions on this form, I will get notified and I will respond to your query within 20 to 48 hours. Thank you very much.